Does Apex feel like it's getting to be more and more difficult for you this season, or are you feeling more confident than ever before? Well, one thing's for sure, the game is continuing to grow, so whether you're more new to this whole experience or you've been playing since day one, this video is designed to help you make better decisions and ultimately have better outcomes. In this video, I'm going to lay out 5 practical ways so that you can improve your decision-making skills. This is an Apex Legends masterclass, so let's get into it. The first way to start making better decisions in Apex centers around threat level assessment, but also assessing all of the variables in that moment. But how does one do this or even get better at it? Well, for me, it all starts with beginning to take in what's actually happening. For example, being able to identify what legends I'm fighting, even when they're not up close in my face. Something as simple as this can help players make better decisions. Because we all know abilities play a big role in Apex, so identifying what tactics can be used against you will hopefully help you determine how to go about taking that fight. Identifying ability cooldowns is a way high IQ players learn to outplay opponents and catch them with their guard down. A simple example would be as if you see a Gibraltar use his bubble, but you don't have to push into it. What could you do? Well, you'd simply wait the 12 seconds for it to go away. And if that team has no nearby cover, you will find them in an extremely vulnerable position. Now, this example could be interchanged with all of the different legends' abilities to one degree or another, because if you're able to identify a legend without their ability because you've just seen them use it, well, that could be your huge advantage over them. So start thinking critically about how to combat certain scenarios in Apex. Now, another way to assess certain threat levels is when you're in a situation that involves multiple teams. And this could range from being in a late game scenario in a ranked match to even just a hectic hut drop in pubs. See, for me, I'm always assessing who I feel like is a bigger threat to me and my team. And as a result, which team deserves the majority of our attention. Lots of players don't even attempt to make this assessment about who's the bigger threat, but this ultimately will just boost your game sense, and as a result, you're bound to have better outcomes in your team's favor. The second way to boost your decision-making skills in Apex has 2 parts to it, but don't trip, they're both really simple. The first is you've got to make sure that you're watching other players who are better than you. Streams, YouTube videos, and anything that you can learn from as a result of watching it. Apex has a lot of nuance, and the only real way to see it for what it is from watching someone's perspective. Because in doing so, you generally start to pick up on a lot more of the things that they do to survive and win. Now, what I did to improve earlier on was I focused on streams. I watched a lot of great players and what they did specifically in fights and rotations and how they used their legends. I mean, everything I studied. I didn't bother reading the Twitch chats or focusing on the Apex drama. I focused specifically on what I wanted to improve at. The best part about this tip is it literally applies to any and every level of player in Apex. You could be a Masters tier player, but you want to get into Apex competitive. Well, who better to watch than a bunch of Apex pros when they're scrimming or in tournaments? Or you could be a gold level player and your goal is to just reach platinum. Well, start watching other players who are better than you. It sounds really simple because it is, but there's another way that I think a lot of players can improve. And this is the second way. It centers around personal VODs or clip reviews, and a VOD just simply means video on demand. Most people only review the squad wipes or the sick kills they rack up, but in reality, you should be capturing both deaths and kills. And when you die, this is where the critical eye needs to come in and assess what you could have done better in that moment. Now listen, hindsight will always be 20/20. So think truly about everything you knew in that moment up until you died and what you could have done better in order to survive or perhaps win. Do not let hindsight be the reasoning behind every death or mistake you make, because any player can really do this. It just takes a little effort on their end. At a certain point, I suggest really reviewing this footage when you have those head scratcher moments. I mean, those moments where you truly wonder, what went wrong or how did I actually die here? And this is where you should find the most amount of benefit to reviewing your own gameplay. If anyone is interested in doing an Apex coaching session where we review your gameplay together, there's a link to my Fiverr in the description. Now, all of the info regarding the session is listed on my Fiverr. So if you have questions, please just read the gig description before reaching out. Thank you. The third way to make better decisions in Apex is start having a game plan. See, game plans are key, and most people just drift in and out of a match and don't truly think about how they want to play it. Now, I know random teammates can severely alter game plans, but I'm going to cover that later in the video. So whether you're dropping hot or landing secluded on the edge of the map, you should try to have a rough draft of a plan, but throughout the match remain flexible, because Apex has RNG and a lot can change quickly. So if you're playing pubs, this is the training grounds for game plans, and when you see things that work, you can take that to the ranked mode. Let's say you land at a POI with 3 other teams. Now, instead of just dropping into the middle of them and hoping for the best, you could land at the edge of it. And this way you aren't surrounded by multiple teams and forced to fight with whatever loot you find initially. Instead, you could just see what you get for loot, and then you could work your way in. From a sheer positioning tactic, this could bode well for you and your teammates. Now, if you don't find good loot, being on the edge allows for you to rotate away from the fight if you don't feel equipped to take on multiple teams off the rip. This is a very, very simple example of a game plan, but I'm telling you from experience, most players don't even begin to think of things like this. Throughout the game, you should also be playing to the strengths of your legend comp. This could affect your rotations, your positioning, and how you take fights drastically. Do you guys want to play edge of the circle or in the center of it? Recon legends assist with ring knowledge, and other legends including Valkyrie could force more of an edge playstyle. If you solo queue a lot, I recommend trying to adjust game to game to what legends your teammates are playing, because this does play a serious factor in a game like Apex. Have you guys smashed the like button yet? It's free and it only takes a second of your time. It helps the video out tremendously from the YouTube algorithm standpoint, so thank you for doing that. The fourth way to improve your decision making in Apex centers around being more proficient with your looting. If you're speeding up the time you spend looting and as a result spending more time fighting, well, this is going to be a great way to improve and fairly quickly. Inventory management is an overlooked skill in Apex. I have talked about this more in depth in previous videos, but to put it simply, when I'm looting, I break it down into what do I have versus what am I looking for. Now, this should speed up your pace tremendously if you implement the same sort of style of thinking. Try to remain somewhat open-minded to what guns you find and try not to get into this habit of, oh, I need this specific loadout for every single match, because this is going to pigeonhole you in a few different ways. Of course, if you're playing ranked, it's fine to be looking for the guns you feel more comfortable with, but try to build up an inventory of different guns so that finding that one loadout doesn't become as much of a factor in all of your games. Also, you must be conscious of what you have game to game, ranging from weapons, attachments, and heals, because this will help you know what you're looking for. Instead of spending 3 minutes in a pile of death boxes, you'll spend 15 seconds because you know all you really need is a bruiser, some light ammo, and some more shield batteries. If you do this, this will prevent you from getting caught in those pile of death boxes while a third party comes to join in. Overall, guys, I just want you to know, loot plays a big role in fights, but it's not always a guarantee that it will make a difference when it comes down to winning or losing. I'd rather see players spend 3 minutes looting and 5 minutes fighting or looking for fights, because this will train them to be better in all aspects in the least amount of time spent. The fifth way to improve your decision making in Apex centers around how you can make better decisions with randoms. I know most of you watching this are still subjecting yourselves to the wonderful, absolutely amazing solo queue experience in Apex. I do this often too. I mean, it's great, right? Right? Nah, but for real, this is one of the hardest things to do in Apex, because let's be real here, Apex is a team game, and albeit randoms are sometimes okay, a lot of times it's rough. However, I do have some simple tips that will work in a lot of scenarios for the average Apex solo player. Number 1, try to be the leader unless someone else is clearly more qualified. Lots of people are just fine with following or drifting through pubs, so having someone lead the team into battles will help them stay more tuned into actually fighting instead of examining the golden Marvin arm on Olympus. I can tell you from experience, if you're just pinging and moving up ahead, a lot of the times players just feel compelled to follow somebody. So it's not about having the person be someone that's necessarily super good. It's just like, hey, this guy's moving here and I kind of want to find a fight, so I'll just follow him. But with that said, try to preserve your life in the moments where you're unsure that what your random is doing is actually smart. Just because your random is full force into a fight doesn't mean you need to as well. Some critical thinking could go a long way here. And maybe your attack will be better served 15 seconds later when you're fully healed up and you see a 1v1 that you can take. Obviously, these circumstances will be vast, but it's up to you to try to assess the best decision to make in that moment. And try to never let yourself make a terrible play to save your random for no real good reason. I mean, at the end of the day, you'll probably never play with them again. I don't want this to be confused with don't fight with your teammates, because that's certainly not what I'm saying. And at times, it will be extremely more beneficial to fight together in instances where you may not be fully healthy or fully comfortable. But if you guys know you can 2v1 this opponent, then the fight becomes much more manageable. I solo queued tens of thousands of matches in Apex Legends, and for some reason, the best randoms are usually ones who play legends like Watson, Crypto, or Caustic. I don't know why, but I swear if I get a random on one of those legends, they're like the ultimate teammate. I want to know your guys' thoughts down in the comments though. And if anyone's interested in more specific solo queue tips, I suggest you click on this video here. Peace.